you don't even see the Blessed Sacrament. And this is typical of what the Novus Ordo Church did, adopting a Protestant mentality that, the church, kneelers aren't necessary. You can sit, you can talk to God in any posture you want. You don't have to kneel. And of course, they had everybody stand for Holy Communion, which was a Protestant practice. And then, of course, it developed into people receiving communion in the hand. Now, that was Protestant as well. The Protestants are the ones who receive communion in the hand. Now, some people will point out, they'll say, but Father, isn't it true that way back, in ancient days, the Catholics also received communion in the hand? And the answer is yes, but they also had a cloth over their hands. And what is more is that with the passage of time, the church decreed that this practice was not good because still the particles of the Blessed Sacrament were being endangered. Every single particle is our Lord Jesus Christ. How can you receive communion in the hand? You are losing all kinds of particles of the Blessed Sacrament. Just place a piece of bread on a plate and pick it up. There are particles. There are little crumbs there. Now, obviously, the Holy Eucharist is a very solid piece of bread, and that's done purposely in order to prevent crumbling. But the thing is, there's still crumbles. There's still a lot when we clean out the ciborium after all the hosts are emptied. There's a lot of particles there, a lot of crumbs. And St. John Chrysostom, echoing what all the priests of the traditional church have always thought, he said that they are like gold dust. You do not lose any of them. You brush them carefully into the chalice with your fingers that are always kept together in the Mass so that only those two fingers are used to handle the Blessed Sacrament, your index finger and your thumb. No other fingers are to touch the Blessed Sacrament. If that is the case in the traditional church, how is it that now the priests not only handle the Blessed Sacrament with any fingers they want, and their hands are always open, but what is more is they give the Holy Eucharist into the hands of the people that have not been consecrated to hold the Holy Eucharist, and the Blessed Sacrament is constantly in danger of being lost or particles being dropped on the floor. It's horrific what's going on in the church. Communion in the hand is one of the greatest abominations in the church because it is a direct attack on the Holy Eucharist. The people have lost reverence for what they're doing. They don't understand anymore what it is they're receiving. Now also, the Protestants, as you know, in the 16th century adopted the use of communion under both kinds. And of course, the Novus Ordo Church did the same thing. It's not that it's so wrong to receive communion under both kinds. It's the fact that the Church decreed, again, out of reverence for the Blessed Sacrament, that this practice was dangerous. Let me tell you why. First of all, because there was so often cases of spilling. And what do you do when you spill the Blessed Sacrament? If you drop a host, you have to go and wipe up the spot. And that's for a host, that there's hardly anything there. Now, what are you going to do if you spill the precious blood? It's almost impossible to clean that up. That is, you're not going to get the particles of the precious blood. It's impossible. And it was happening too often in the Middle Ages. People, when they drank from the chalice, sometimes you just drink it too quickly, all of a sudden some of it goes down your cheek and drips on your clothing. What are you going to do? You can't do anything. You could maybe wipe the spot with holy water or whatever, but it doesn't protect the Blessed Sacrament. Also, what are you going to do with all the remains of the precious blood? You can't put them in the tabernacle. So, if you consecrate, let's say, enough wine so that everyone in your parish can receive the precious blood, you're going to have a lot left over. And what they've done in the Novus Ordo Church now is they just pour it down the sacrarium. They just pour it down the sink. And that's all they do. They just... Now, it's... Obviously, they're pouring in the sacrarium, I hope. But there are parishes where they don't even do that. And I speak from firsthand knowledge from people who used to be Eucharistic ministers. They told me, Father, I wish that was the case in all of our parishes, but it's not. Many parishes in the Novus Ordo Church, the ladies that are, because it's almost invariably the ladies who, you know, they get up there and they give out communion. They take the trays of the precious blood back to the sacristy, and they just pour it down the sink. Not the sacrarium. They pour it down the sink. It's terrible. It's just awful, the irreverence for the Blessed Sacrament. And this person that was a Eucharistic minister at one time was telling me, you know, Father, it was like we were doing the dishes. Everyone was just talking. There was no reverence. We have all the precious bloods right in front of us. There was no genuflecting or reverence or whispering, you know, in prayerfulness before the Blessed Sacrament. No, just, so what are you doing? Just talking to one another. What are you going to do today? Oh, yeah. We're going to have people over. You know, they're rinsing the cups out. And, you know. But it was like they were doing the dishes, these people told me. No reverence for the Holy Eucharist. So the Church had decreed long ago, because of the danger of irreverence to the Blessed Sacrament, that the Blessed Sacrament would only be received under one species. And what is more is that that's all that you need, because when you receive the host, you receive the whole person of our Lord Jesus Christ. Body, blood, soul, and divinity. His whole person. You don't have to receive the precious blood. You already have. In receiving the host, you've received the whole person of our Lord. And finally, the Mass has always been considered a sacrifice. And I already talked about this, I know, but the Protestants spoke of it as being a meal. They removed the reference in their services to sacrifice, and so did the Novus Ordo Church. In the new Mass, there is no reference to the word sacrifice. They don't call it that anymore. They never say the holy sacrifice of the Mass, unless you have a priest who's very traditional-minded. But the vast number of them don't. They just speak of it as a meal or as a celebration of the Holy Eucharist. They don't speak of it as a sacrifice. And so hardly a Novus Ordo person understands what it is that they are taking part in, that it is our Lord offering himself for us again. I hope all of you will remember that and understand that when you go into a church, it is like you're going on Calvary. You are assisting at our Lord's sacrifice. And sacrifice has always been offered on an altar of stone. I was just telling the children in school the story of Jacob, how after he and his brother Esau had split because, remember, Jacob didn't steal the first birthright, but Esau had surrendered it to him for that pot of stew. And he stopped to rest and he fell asleep. And he used the stones to rest his head against these stones. And as he slept, he had this vision or dream of a staircase that went up to heaven. And he saw angels ascending and descending. And at the top of the staircase was God himself. And when Jacob awoke, he realized that wasn't just a dream. God was making me to understand that this is a holy place. He said, terrible is this place, awful is this place. He didn't mean terrible in a bad way. He meant awesome. How incredible is this place? This is the gate of heaven. In other words, this is where earth touches heaven. Now, my dear friends, that is the Mass. That is the sacrifice of the Mass.